Hi, this is Subramaniam Shankar, my plus. Risk management. Okay. In fact, if you ask me, the veritable base for the information security implementation is the risk management. Like, if you don't know what should be secured, okay, then that means you are not, doing it properly. In fact, this month we have got CISSP and ISO 27001 lead implementer as a dual certification. To establish the context of the organization, okay, we need to identify we need to do the SWOT analysis and also identify the expectations of the interested party. In the SWOT analysis, okay, the strength, weakness, opportunities, and the threats. The weakness and the threats will get onto your risk register. And similarly, when you're recording the expectations of the interested party, wherever you cannot meet the expectation of the interested party, that will also get down as one of the records on the risk register. So the risk register is something which is veritable base for be it NIST CSF implementation or ISO 27000 implementation or any of the security frameworks. Okay, if you do not know what your pain points are, okay, we will ideally be spending money on something which is not worth. Okay, so getting to know the pain points, okay, getting to know where the attacker can actually hit us, okay, is what the veritable base for the risk management is. Okay, risk is the uncertainty. Before we identify what the risks are, we need to identify what the assets are. Okay, so asset multiplied by the threat, multiplied by the vulnerability, multiplied by the probability, multiplied by the impact, okay, is a long equation for risk. There are people who say threat multiplied by vulnerability. Okay, threat multiplied by vulnerability multiplied by the cost will give you the monetary equation. Okay, and threat multiplied by vulnerability multiplied by the probability multiplied by the impact. Okay, is the actual equation. Okay, and obviously, if the asset is not worth it, then the impact is also going to be zero. So there are people who are comfortably, they will avoid this asset as a part of this equation. Okay, so threat multiplied by vulnerability multiplied with the impact multiplied with the probability is the risk equation. Okay, now first thing we need to identify what should be protected. Okay, anything that provides an value to the organization is an asset. Okay, so we speak about the information security. Okay, so it's like the computers, okay, the servers, the laptops, tablets, mobile phones, okay, the cloud data center, okay, and our own traditional in-house data center. In-house data center can be on premises or it could be a cloud-based. Okay, cloud-based internal cloud. Okay, so wherever the data repository is there, especially for the sensitive data, okay, that is an asset. People are asset. The building is an asset. Okay, anything that provides a value to the organization is an asset. But we are not doing an 9001 or business continuity here. It's going to be the information security. So if you look at the technical scope, okay, where all the sensitive information, okay, is going to be at rest or is going to be in transit, it's going to be at in use. Okay, this is a technical scope for the information security, and all those systems, networks, etc. Okay, should be flagged as an asset. It also includes the data center because physical security is also something, one of the controls that we are going to implement. So asset is anything that provides value to the organization. Vulnerability is a weakness. Okay, so vulnerability need not be only in IT. There could be a vulnerability with the building. There could be vulnerability with the hardware, vulnerability with the firmware, vulnerability with the power, vulnerability with the network, vulnerability with the application, vulnerability with the operating system. Okay, so it can be anywhere, and vulnerability with the user. Okay, the most vulnerable layer in the complete security chain. Okay, this calls the vulnerability stack. Okay, now we are trying to find the vulnerability. Okay, only for the servers. Okay, only with the servers, the operating system and the firmware and the web application. Okay, now there are a lot of campaigns. Okay, on the social engineering attack. Go Fish is one of the tools using with the social engineering phishing campaigns are actually happening with the organization. There are social engineering awareness programs that are happening within the organization to touch the human part of, the human social engineering part of the information security. Okay, the hardware failure. Okay, we don't look at. Rarely I have come across an organization that also, maintains the age of the hardware. Okay, now the software vulnerability and all is actually fine. Application vulnerability, you have tools to actually do it. But if you look at the hardware vulnerability, okay, so we need to exactly find out. We need to do it manually because I start my days with the AS400s and mainframe system. Okay, there's something called as a dedicated service tool. Okay, on the AS400, which I can actually log in to find out what could be the expiry date for a particular hardware component. There's a notification that is sent to, on the AS400 console that if the hardware component is going to fail. But after that, I have not come across any of the latest technology. I might be wrong. Okay, maybe it's there or it's not there. I don't know. But if it's there, okay, the hardware failure. Okay, so we need to know when the hardware is actually failing. These things happen naturally. Okay, the vulnerability or the weakness could also be inherent to a particular component, or it could also be inherited, okay, by the surrounding weaknesses. For example, if I have my laptop without logged on to the nearby docking station or nearby any stationary object, there's a vulnerability of an tailgating. Somebody is doing a tailgating and physical security. They might go away with the laptop. Okay, that is a weakness on the process front. Okay, so we cannot just look at a particular component, but the vulnerability could be there in the surrounding process also. Okay, whenever you are implementing in the NIST CSSP or ISO 27001, we speak about people, process, and technology. So the vulnerability of the process, vulnerability of the people will be inherited with the technology. Okay, so we need to have a thorough understanding of what the vulnerability is, threats. Okay, anything that can cause some damage, exploiting the vulnerability. Okay, is a threat. Okay, you have what is called a threat source, threat event, and a threat agent. Okay, so what is the threat source? It could be natural calamity, or it could be a human. Okay, if it's a human, then he's a threat agent. What is the threat event? Depending upon the natural calamity, then you can have earthquakes, tornadoes, or flooding, or storms that are hitting you. Okay, so sandstorms if you are in GCC. Okay, all these things are natural calamity. Okay, but if it's going to be a threat agent, it's a human agent. He can technically attack you, launch a DDoS attack, SQL injection attack, cross-site scripting, OWASP top 10 vulnerability, SANS top 25, web application security consortium. So all these attacks are given. Okay, so you can follow MITRE. Okay, the attack vector to find out what could be the way in which the attack can actually hit you. Okay, now I always say that if something can be eliminated, okay, if the threat source can be eliminated, that is something that we need to address first. Okay, rather than trying to mitigate the aftermath of the what could actually happen. So okay, so for example, how can you mitigate if the threat source is a natural calamity? Choose a location, okay, which is not prone for any of the the natural calamities. Okay, earthquakes. In fact, when I was doing an audit for one of the busiest airports in the world, so they said the airport they had chosen a low seismic zone, okay, and so that this area is not prone for the earthquake. So most of the airports in the world, or all the airports in the world, okay, will be chosen based on the the how the environment is. Okay, but in spite of all that, you cannot expect things to happen like the way you actually want. Murphy's law. Okay, so in fact, the Dubai airport and the surrounding region was flooded. Okay, last year. Okay, at the same time. Okay, because of the rains in Dubai, and these things were not expected. Okay, and it happens as such. Okay, and in fact, last week there was a cyber attack on the Malaysian airport. Okay, but they did not have much of the trouble because they had the resilience in place, which is a good thing. Okay, now what the DXB. Okay, in case the DXB is flooded, okay, we can have the flights diverted to DWC, the Al Muktam airport, one of the largest airports in the world. So either you choose a location, okay, to for avoiding the natural calamity, or you have resilience built or a plan B, okay, to get activated in case you are not able to prevent it. Okay, natural calamities cannot be prevented, right? Okay, threat source, threat event, and threat agent. Okay, who's the threat agent? It's a human factor. Okay, the person who is introducing the threat onto the environment is called as a threat agent. Okay, let disgruntled employee. Okay, so I'm an antivirus administrator for an organization. You fire me overnight, and the next day, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose and I'm going to look out for the new viruses. I know how many systems have got the latest updated antivirus and which have obsolete antivirus definitions. Okay, so I can figure out a way in which I can pass on this new virus on a system that has got the obsolete antivirus. Okay, so if I introduce the virus onto the environment, I'm called as a threat agent. So threat agent is a human factor that introduces the threat onto the environment. So threat source, threat event, and we have what is called the threat agent. And impact. Okay, so what is going to be the impact for the organization because of this particular threat, this particular attack? If there is no impact to the organization because of the attack, okay, then it's absolutely fine. There's no risk at all. For example, if the organization is going to have honeypot, there's a site called showdown.io, okay, where you can type the honeypot and you'll find a lot of honeypots that are listed there with an external IP. So honeypots, if the hacker is honeypots are purposefully placed on the environment to the public IP, like a trap the hackers. Okay, so enticement, entrapment. We actually discussed okay one of the videos. So if the honeypot is being attacked by the hacker, there is no impact to the organization because the honeypot is actually deployed okay for that particular purpose. Okay, there's no actual data on the honeypot. So the impact is zero. If the impact is zero, risk is actually zero. Probability, okay, what is the likelihood of this attack being happening? In fact, every airport has got what is called air traffic control. Most of this air traffic control, or all the air traffic control in the world, they are not in the domain, they are in the work group. Okay, so that if the surrounding vulnerabilities of the attacks are not inherited by the ATC, because the ATC is very crucial for running the airport. Okay, so ATC works on legacy application. There are a lot of vulnerabilities. Okay, so to exploit the vulnerability, you literally have to go to the ATC, and ATC is actually a building, okay, which is isolated from all the other buildings of the airport. If you want to visit the ATC, then you need to have the permission to for somebody to take you on the shuttle with the airport, okay, and you need to be escorted if you're an external consultant, okay, to go to the ATC to do an audit, okay. Now, if you're for an auditor himself or herself, okay, it's a very stringent rules to approach the ATC. In case of anybody else, okay, like a hacker, it's next to impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible to go to the ATC. So it's an asset. There are threats. There are vulnerability. Okay, there is also going to be an impact. The probability or likelihood of this happening is zero. Another classic example is having an window open on the Burj Khalifa. Okay, in the Burj Khalifa, it's going to be on the ground floor. Okay, somebody can jump inside, but it's going to be on 160th floor. Nobody can jump inside. Okay, see, the vulnerability is same. Okay, it's an asset. Okay, the threats are also there, and in a probability of something, okay, like this happening is next to impossible. It's impossible. Who will climb onto the 160th floor? Okay, unless otherwise somebody wants to do a skydiving. Okay, with the parachute, want to exactly enter those windows. Okay, it's impossible. Okay, now look at the risk equation. Okay, so before that, okay, we have something called what is the risk? Risk is an uncertainty. Let me reduce the size of my video. Wow, yeah. Potential loss or damage to organization information communication system due to cyber threats. Okay, so both the host and the network. It encompasses risk exposing the sensitive data and potential adverse impact. Okay, if the data on the host is not sensitive, or the data and transfer to the network is not sensitive, then you don't have a problem. Okay, the impact is zero. If it's a publicly classified information, which anyway I want to expose it to the public, why should I secure it? Okay, so like a marketing data, I want to do the marketing of my product. What is the point in securing it? So the cyber risk can arise from various sources, including cyber attack, data breaches. Okay, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Whenever there is going to be an deviation from confidentiality, integrity, and availability, we flag that as a cyber attack. Risk equation: threat multiplied by vulnerability, multiplied by the impact, multiplied with the probability. If any one of this is zero, then risk is equal to zero. Risk treatment: when avoid, transfer, mitigate, and accept. Okay, Atma, okay, is what we actually call this as. In fact, when I was delivering training for professionals in Bangladesh, they for some reason they're all fond of acronyms. Okay, so they said Atma. Okay, in fact, they said DORA. What's DORA? It's a DHCP handshake. Okay, discover, offer, request, and then acknowledge. AFAK. Okay, what is AFAK? As far as all I know. Okay, so with this, okay, I can just take two sheet of papers, and write down the complete Sean Harris book with one of the acronyms. I'm not very, good in remembering the acronyms, okay, but they taught me a lot of things actually. Anyway, coming to this particular one, avoid, transfer, mitigate, and accept. Okay, if the threat source can be avoided, just avoid it. Or the risk can be avoided, you avoid it. Vulnerability can be avoided, you avoid it. Okay, I'm doing a background verification for a new hire. Okay, he has got a criminal record. I will avoid hiring him. This is risk avoidance. That's the best thing to do and easiest thing to do. Threat elimination or vulnerability elimination. Okay, what is the transfer? Okay, the common way of the common risk transfer example is the cyber insurance. Okay, I've got the tier 2 data center, okay, certified by Uptime Institute. But in spite of all that, okay, Uptime Institute tier 4 basically means that 99.995% uptime. Okay, so that means 0.05 percentage of possibility that there could be an outage. Okay, but all the organizations are trying the level best to ensure that outage doesn't exist. Okay, in fact, the cloud service providers are more focused on to ensure that 99.999 is what they actually say, because there's always a benefit of doubt. Okay, so they doubt that whether they can match it or not, but usually they match it because it leads to reputational damage. So cyber insurance is a risk transfer. Okay, if the natural calamity hits you and then you have a plan B and all of things anyway there, you'll have the BCP center which you will invoke. But to build, okay, the primary location that has been hit with the disaster, you need some funding, which comes to you with the cyber insurance. Mitigation, okay, mitigation is like, you are putting in a control to mitigate the impact of a particular impact because of a particular risk. Okay, I have a system without an antivirus. Okay, so with the system without an antivirus has got what is called as a inherent or total risk. I put an antivirus, and so system with an antivirus, okay, will give me what is called a residual risk, because the signature based antivirus is very faster. It can secure my system against the known viruses, provided the signature is updated. But with respect to the zero-day attack, it cannot actually do it. It cannot secure me. But because it cannot secure me against the zero-day attack, that doesn't mean that I cannot go for antivirus, right? At least 99.999 percentage, okay, of 99.99 percentage of threats can be risk can be mitigated. Okay, what is acceptance? Okay, acceptance. Usually there are two ways in which you can look at the risk acceptance. One is, if you have gotten compensating control in place, then you can go for risk acceptance. For example, okay, according to most of the security frameworks, you cannot have a privileged account, root or root equivalent, or administrator equivalent account for people to use any point of time. So what you can actually do is you can create, you can actually create a root equivalent ID. Okay, so you cannot actually create a root equivalent ID. What you can do is you can inhibit or suppress the interactive login, okay, for those accounts, okay, and then that's one way of doing it. Or if you have password account manage PAM tool, okay, privilege account management tool, you can vault those accounts there. So you need not eliminate those accounts from the system, because it's impossible, it's required, but you can have a compensating control of having a PAM tool, or to avoid doing the interactive login. Okay, so with those controls, you accept the risk. Now, let me tell you something, okay? Risk, because vulnerabilities are always existing until we actually know it. In fact, if you go to NVD National Vulnerability Database, you can find that there are vulnerabilities reported every day. If the vulnerability is reported today, that means until yesterday we did not know about the vulnerability. We also know what a patch Tuesday is, and funny way of saying there's something called an exploit Wednesday, which is an unofficial term. We all know that Microsoft releases the patch, okay, usually on a Tuesday. But Wednesday, people said the exploit Wednesday, because until Microsoft releases the information about the patch, even the hackers do not know anything about the patch. Okay, but again, not only for Microsoft, for every organization, okay, they release the patch with the information, and people learn about that patch, okay, and the operating system or application go to Shodan and find them in the public AP and try to attack it. This is a never-ending game. So what I'm actually saying, we all know that the vulnerabilities always exist until they are actually discovered, and any of the vulnerability can be exploited. Okay, we are accepting that risk and we are proceeding, because somebody is going to die. That doesn't mean that he will not live today, right? We have to anyway live. We are accepting that and we are marching towards it, right? So we know that every hardware will fail. Okay, we know that every system has got the vulnerability, but still we need to run the IT operations. There's the risk acceptance. Okay, now risk types, inherent and residual risk, is what I actually told you. Risk analysis, okay, there are two different types of risk analysis. Qualitative risk analysis, which is subjective. Okay, so there's a numerical way of representing the risk in the qualitative risk analysis. You need to pull in there's a questionnaire, you can do a survey, okay, online survey, or you need to pull in the subject matter experts, external consultants, and give them the scenario and ask them, is it a high risk, low risk, or medium risk? Okay, they're going to answer you. Okay, it can be very high, medium, low, very low. It can be high, medium, low. Whether it is 5, 3, 7, 9, it's all up to you. But when the way that they are going to classify the risk, okay, you need to have justification. Okay, what do you want to do? It can be based on the impact, okay, the monetary impact also. And quantitative risk analysis is more towards the numerical methods. Okay, so there's the qualitative, and the quantitative is more towards the numerical methods. Okay, in fact, you all know there's something called as an exposure factor, okay, asset value, single loss expectancy. Annualized rate of occurrence, number of incidents by number of years. Okay, annualized loss expectancy. There's something as the total cost of ownership. ROSI, return on security investment. Okay, all those things comes under the quantitative analysis. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to stop here with this for this video. We're going to have the second video on the risk management. Okay, sooner, maybe tomorrow or day after, whenever it is, and then I'm going to explain you how to do a quantitative risk analysis. Okay, with a practical example. Okay, hypothetical situation. So the Subramaniam Shankaran from ISSP. Okay, if you want to join me for CISSP, you can mail me on training@isssp.org.uk or text me on +91 99405 874 99405 87544. Okay, so I'm signing off for now. In fact, this particular April, we have got a dual certification program, CISSP plus ISO 27001 lead implementer. Okay, you cannot be an ISO 27001 consultant if you are not a CISSP certified professional. So join me for CISSP handholding until you are certified, and also your ISO 27001 lead implementer certification. Cheers and bye-bye. Good day.